Welcome to the Heady NJ podcast, where we bring you up close and personal with cannabis influencers in New Jersey and beyond. I am your host, Brian Walsh, founder of Heady NJ. Through our guest interviews and informational segments, we will be bringing you everything you need to know about the cannabis industry in New Jersey. We will discuss the latest in news, culture, and lifestyle information in the world of cannabis right here on our podcast. With cannabis legalization just around the corner in our state, there isn't a more important time to know what is going on. Hello, today we have Rani Soto from Cannagather in Cannagather, New Jersey, along with a few other organizations that I'm sure we'd like to hear about. Hello, Rani.
How you doing, Brian?
Good. Thanks for joining us today. I know you're a very busy guy, especially lately with legalization on the edge.
Well, number one, thank you for putting this podcast together. Thanks for the opportunity and the platform to, share what we're doing and the movement we're pushing along in the state and really across the country. Well, the last couple of weeks have been interesting. We all expected by October 29th to have a bill sent up to Phil Murphy that would be signed into law. Unfortunately, where we are in the process, there's some areas of the bill and some language that still hasn't been ironed out. So now we're thinking this is going to get pushed out to January. So in the meantime, our groups are continuing to, push the initiatives forward when it comes to social justice, social equity, diversity in this industry. Just continuing to push that forward and attending a lot of local events, whether they're industry events or events that are being led by the municipalities, the leaders in those municipalities. It's important that we keep pushing that message forward as this legalization process unfolds.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Tell us, how did you arrive in cannabis, and what about New Jersey got you involved in cannabis?
Sure. Well, I'm born and raised in Hoboken, New Jersey. Before Hoboken was as popular and beautiful as it is now. I got involved in the cannabis industry about 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. After seeing President Trump, our new president, Trump was elected, and at that point, I believe more than half of the union had medical programs. And as a patient myself, I'm a cancer survivor, about 8 years removed from that having Hodgkin's lymphoma and going through that process.
Wow.
I utilize cannabis as a way to help with the pain management and even the post-traumatic stress that comes from dealing with something so traumatizing. And I just wanted to do my research. I wanted to find out is this a real industry? Like, what's happening here? And simply I Googled cannabis events. And the first event that popped up was an event called High and Y, which turned into a different company called Cannagather, which we have now. But I started attending these events, and I was surprised because this has been such a subculture. This has been a subculture since I'm a kid, and it's not anything we did publicly or got together and discussed. It was kind of just like something we did on the weekends or during the week to decompress, and it was a secret, right? And now going to these events, or going to that event in particular, I saw there's an industry being created. There's suits in the room, there's entrepreneurs in the room, and there's patients in the room, and everyone's trying to figure out what this industry is and how it's going to benefit them and benefit the community. So getting involved in that education piece was critical. I have, similar to you, I have a background in education. So I was a teacher for 8 years. So
you have a master's degree, right, from Fordham, I believe?
I have a master's degree in education. So I taught for 8 years. Most of my time, bulk of my time, 6 years out of the 8, I taught in inner city schools in New York City. So again, going to one of those events, it was education that I didn't know existed. And as a teacher and being in that profession, my first thought was, wow, well, how can I apply the best practices as an educator that I've used into this new field that's developing, right? Because everyone has different, just like in our education systems, people just have different levels of education and need to be met where they're at. Mm-hmm. And so that was exciting to me, in addition to just learning that space. And then from there, I got heavily involved in the education portion, and that allowed me to gain access to parts of the industry that I would have never been able to access if I just showed up and just kept attending events and just watching what was happening. So I really immersed myself.
Was Cannagather the first sort of area that you immersed yourself in, and that was the first opportunity? Because I know you're involved in a few different things. So did you dive headfirst into Cannagather? Or?
Yeah, so it was High NY. It was High NY when I initially started, and then the company separated, and me and Josh Weinstein, one of the other founders, we created Cannagather. And once we had full control of that, I delved deep into it and spent a lot of time figuring out the best possible. We try to figure out and deliver the best possible education from industry experts, and that's really where that platform introduced me to all the other opportunities that came down the line. So, for example, I've had the opportunity, or I'm currently the National Director of Latinx Outreach for Minorities for Medical Marijuana. That's a national organization that's in 20 states, including Jamaica. And they're also expanding to Canada now that there's a lot of interest in Canada and also in Europe. So that gave me the opportunity and another platform to work on and to ensure that people that, Latinos in this space that have no idea what's happening, at a minimum get access to as much information as possible so they can make a decision whether they don't want to participate, they want to be workers, or they want to be owners. So that's always been my goal, to at least provide that level of education so people can make decisions.
So Cannagather just started in New Jersey. How long has Cannagather been in New Jersey? And, what have you done so far in New Jersey? Why don't you just talk about that a little bit?
So we had 4 events in Jersey City, June through September. Had a great reception from the community. In that time span, we had over 1,000 people come to our events and get educated.
Wow.
We had, phenomenal speakers like Wanda James, Dr. Shonda Macias. We've had Assemblyman Holly come, a prosecutor for Jersey City, Jake Hudnut. So we've been accepted into the community, which is fantastic. And the great part is that, our event is focused on business. However, the business can't take place without the community being involved, without elected officials being involved, and local entrepreneurs being involved. So with that set as the framework of what we want to do and the goal and the mission of what we want to do, we've gotten a great reception. And I'm born and raised in Hoboken, so Jersey City was like the closest thing to getting some education in my area for the folks that live in my area. And what happened is we had a lot of folks that were coming to our event from South Jersey, and also Delaware and Philly.
Wow, yeah.
So now we're
the whole tri-state area.
New Jersey's New Jersey's a giant, it's a huge state, and now what we're doing is we're going to spend the next few months, the rest of this quarter, in Trenton is our next event on October 30th, and then we're going to go to Asbury Park and then Princeton University, and then from there, we may come back up north. We just want to make sure that we're paying attention to the demand of the community and then meeting them there, where it makes sense.
That's great. So kind of taking the show on the road a little bit?
Road trip.
Great. You envision Cannagather continuing and growing?
Yeah, I think even into legalization, our platform is going to be viable. Now, once we become a legalized state, we're going to have to deliver a different type of content because, the closer we move towards legalization, the demand from the community is more practical application. It's great to hear from these industry experts and hear about what they've done in other states and all the theory behind it. And now that we're going to legalize as a state, now there's an opportunity to turn this theory into application. So our platform, just like any other person's probably platform in the state, it will evolve to meet that need. And then we also, Cannagather, we started in New York, we expanded out to New Jersey, but we have demand in other states to bring that similar platform, to like a Philadelphia, Atlanta, or a Miami. So, the future is bright. It all depends on what kind of moves we can make. And our goal when we come into a community is not to just show up and start doing education events and kind of bogart the space. We want to make sure we have relationships in those municipalities or in those states that we're going to, and we have advocates on the ground that work with us. So it's a big community effort. It's not just about throwing an event together.
That's one thing I noticed about Cannagather. I've been to a few of the events in New York and New Jersey, and they're always great and well attended, everything you said. But it's got a real low barrier to entry. That's another thing, right? I mean, they're not too much money, right? These events are not very costly to attend.
No, I mean, our tickets are, $35, up to like $50 at the door. So it's a reasonable cost. And it's funny because we have the opportunity, because of our education platform, to attend a lot of other events, right? And which helps us, expand our knowledge and also, stay abreast of what's happening in the industry. But a lot of these events are $300, $400. I was just at an event on Monday that was $1,200 to get in.
Wow.
And if I wasn't a part of an organization, me personally, I wouldn't show up to pay for that. Right. Because the information in that room is the same information that's being delivered at events that are more cost effective. So we want to create low barriers to entry. For us, we all know this information's out there already, but we just want to make sure that we deliver it in a way where people can walk away and consume it and figure out, what's going to be the next step for themselves. So yeah, we want to make it accessible. That's the goal.
Yeah, and that's, again, one thing I noticed was just the whole team approach to Cannagather. You have a lot of involvement, as far as the outreach, the people that are setting up the programming, the technology components of it, the political pieces and the legislative pieces. So it's really great how you've, assembled and, bring together the teamwork and, really reach out to many people in the industry in that way. But speaking of teamwork, can you talk a little bit about the team that maybe you applied for your license with, or, do you have anything you'd like to highlight about your application?
The group that I applied with, or that I joined forces with, is it's called Simply Pure.
Okay.
So Simply Pure is led by Wanda James. If you don't know Wanda James, you should. Wanda James is the first African-American license holder in the state of Colorado. And from what I understand, she's probably still the only one. And then if you think about in our country, I think she's the first one in our country. So she's been through, she has over 10 years experience on the retail side and the cultivation side, and definitely in line with our goals of making sure this is an inclusive industry. And then we also we partnered with Al Harrington, former NBA star, New Jersey native, owns Viola Extracts, and they're in, I believe, 5 states. They're operating in 5 states. So in addition to them, we have we partnered up with Susanna Short, who's a local powerhouse in New Jersey. David Serrano, who's a local Hoboken resident, just like I am. So we have a team of
very diverse.
It's a very diverse team. New Jersey residents. We are, from what we understand, we're probably the most diverse group to apply.
Oh, great.
And if you look at industry-wide, we're probably the most diverse group to ever apply for a license at this stage, because typically groups that look like us and that are composed of people like us don't go after these medical licenses because they're north of $25 million to get them stood up. So definitely excited to be a part of the group. Obviously, they just pushed back the November 1st date. So I'm hoping before November 24th, which is my birthday, that they give me some good news.
That'd be a great birthday present, right?
I mean, you can't get a much better present than that. Maybe your kid's being born that day. That's about it.
As far as
so our group,
go ahead.
Our group, we applied in Trenton, New Jersey, and we are applicants in Paterson, New Jersey. So both areas that need an economic engine to bring them back, and definitely one of my goals is to be able to bring this back to my state and help my state get a win.
So you applied for 2? Is that what you are saying?
Yeah, the way the application process is, you could apply for North, Central, or South, and our group chose Patterson in the North and Trenton in the South.
Okay. I mean, so there's what, 146 applications or something like that, 140 something, I believe, that were sent
Yeah,
in.
108 companies submitted 146 applications.
Right. So hopefully, hopefully we'll hear something soon. I know they got backed up. I don't know. I'm sure they were expecting a lot of applications, so I didn't think they should back it up. But they already backed up the bill and they've delayed everything else. So I guess what do you expect?
Yeah, it's common. I mean, no one has ever met a deadline for applications in the cannabis industry, so we weren't surprised.
And one thing in New Jersey is that, we can't pass a law about, like, let's say seatbelts, without years of debate, it seems. So, this is something really important, cannabis. Not that seatbelts aren't important, but you know what I mean? This is like major. There's a lot of opposition throughout the towns. So I was at a meeting last night and, Bishop James, is that his name, from Newark? He was at this meeting and talking about, just a lot of reefer madness, talking about marijuana trucks in the street and talking about how it's going to be like the crack epidemic, and so it's really important and imperative, I think, to get the real education out there, like what Cannagather's doing and like what we're doing on our site on Heady NJ. And, we had some events already in Asbury Park highlighting the culture. And I think it's more important than ever for people to see that, we break all those stereotypes. People like us have college degrees. We've been working hard, and trying to make the industry look really good. And, there's a lot of things that people need to see so they can get behind it. Last night, they talked about 60 towns being against it already. But as you know, there's 500 and something municipalities. So there's 450 towns or so that haven't weighed in yet at all. Did Patterson weigh in yet? You said that's where you're applying?
Yeah, Patterson is on board. Trenton is obviously on board, right, because Reese Garcia is their mayor now. And they just recently on Thursday they passed their medical cannabis ordinance, which is definitely big kudos to Leo Bridgewater, working on that for a number of years, 3 or 4 years, working on making sure that Trenton is able to benefit from this $billion opportunity. But I want to address one thing in terms of the Reverend and also individuals like Senator Ron Rice. It's unfortunate because we're at a point in the development of this industry where minorities, and I'll include African Americans, Latinos, men and women, women and veterans, that instead of focusing and distracting people and talking about reefer madness and this gateway theory, they need to redirect this energy. And what has to happen is they have to figure out how to support these minority groups that are looking to enter this space. I'm fortunate enough to have the opportunity to be in rooms where the discussions are about building a global cannabis industry. And when you think about how this is being built on the global scale, we're really not involved. We're really not included in the conversation. So we, in the United States, we're at a pivotal point where, Canada just legalized, and now there's pressure for us to legalize because of the financial losses that we're taking to Canada on this particular industry. But as it's being built and developed, everyone needs to redirect their energy into figuring out how these groups that have been impacted by the illegality of the plant, we need to figure out how to ensure that they're at the table. And I am all for jobs. I think providing jobs is a fantastic thing. However, jobs do not create generational wealth typically, right? I haven't met many people who've gotten jobs and then all of a sudden their entire generation or the trajectory of their generational wealth has changed. Now, this is a nascent industry. There's opportunities to place individuals like me and you who are advocates in positions to be owners and utilize our skills that we already have in other industries. And I'm not seeing enough of that. And even with the companies that apply for the recent medical licenses, a lot of these companies are offering jobs, but not many of them are speaking to the local community and getting them involved in ownership, which is it's a very important thing that we get in front of, because that's the only way we're going to really able to have an impact going further, is the revenue generated from owning one of these companies, not the revenue from being a worker. So that's my stance on Senator Rice and Jethro. It's time for them to redirect that energy and ensure that we really get a place at the table, as opposed to distracting folks with reefer madness and gateway theories.
It's incredible when you hear all that stuff going on. What are your tips or strategies for people to get involved and not miss the boat?
Number one, you need to be an advocate. I mean, unless you have access to $10 million right now, you need to become an advocate. And there's a variety of ways to become an advocate. Some people choose to be a patient advocate, like myself. Some people choose to be business advocates, such as myself. And then some people choose to go the route of social justice and social equity. I've decided that all of them are important, and I want to ensure that when I'm delivering content or information or resources, that I can cover all three of those. Now, everyone doesn't have to do that. However, you have to pick a lane or maybe 2 lanes or 3 lanes. Maybe you can do all 3. But being an advocate puts you in a very advantageous position, because as these companies with their very deep pockets come into your municipalities, if you are the lead advocate in that municipality, they're going to have to come speak to you, especially if you've developed a relationship with your city council and your mayor, and they know that you are the leaders when it comes to education and rolling this out, similar to what you guys are doing in Asbury Park, which is remarkable. You guys are taking over the education and providing all the resources that are needed. Now, when a big company comes in, they're going to have to partner with you, especially the way that these applications were written out. Because if you look at even the medical requirements, if you look at the application for the medical, one of the requirements, it's not a requirement. However,
gives
you
you
will
edge,
get
extra points.
Yeah, you will get points, right? If you work with local community leaders, local community partners. Now, what these local community partners and leaders need to do is not accept a check for $50,000, because that's what's happened, right? They will call you and say, we'll give you $50,000 to use your name. That's not what has to happen. What has to happen is when they call you, you have to tell them, well, number one, I need equity, right? I need to own a part of this company. And then number 2, we need to have a strategy in place that mirrors what this community needs. And so last night I was at a debate in Jersey City, and I had the honor of being next to Senator Rice and Diana Wainu and a couple other industry leaders. And I told that crowd in Jersey City, I said, I know personally 3 major companies that applied for medical licenses in Jersey City, and they're offering everyone jobs. But then I posed a question to the community. Have they asked your community about ownership or equity in this billion-dollar company that's coming to your municipality, which you were punished for the past, for all these decades? And everybody in the room nodded their head no. No one is coming to speak to these community folks. And the issue in Jersey City is that not one advocate in Jersey City has made a force big enough to get in the way of the cannabis space. And that's what you need to do if you want to get in this game. You need to get in the way of these companies that are coming, and the best way to get into it is by being the lead, being the subject matter expert in your community.
You hit on a lot of really important topics right there. With ownership, the one thing I just want to, and it's also circle back to the question we just spoke about, I just feel like as we move forward, and I wonder if you agree, that, we'll see more consolidation of the industry as the big powerhouses come in and the national legalization happens. And right ownership, unfortunately, may be harder to obtain, But that being said, I think that you also pointed out, it's really important to get a stake in ownership or equity in your contracts, So if you are in a position where you are the expert, then you get offered that, equity and ownership through your positioning, And I think that's the third thing that you pointed out that's really important, just to position yourself
and I
as
am
an
a
expert.
prime example of that. I am not. I don't know and really care what the impression of me is in the industry. However, I'm a local kid from Hoboken that grew up in Section 8 housing. I do not have $10 million. I don't have $1 million. But because of how we've positioned ourselves as leaders in the industry and educators in the industry, that's given us a huge advantage. So I definitely I encourage people to take a position and fight for it and learn not only about the part of the industry you're interested in, but learn about all parts of the industry, because those are the parts of if you understand the entire space, when you're ready to get in a position to be, or in a position where your state is offering out licenses, these key players are going to know who you are, what you're doing, and again, they're going to have to call you. Because if they don't call you, now you as a community leader, now it's the onus is on you to make sure that you let your community and your elected officials know that they're not working with the local community. They're trying to box you out. So everyone has to stay on point and stay attuned, because my partner Leo Bridgewater, we always say this: we're not interested in being part of the cannabis industry, because the way it's constructed right now is not beneficial for us, right? We're creating an entire different industry. We're going to create our own industry within the cannabis industry that has equity, has inclusion, and takes into account the people who live in these areas that have been impacted.
Well, definitely the one thing I hear that is, a common thread across all these areas, and the one thing that I think, if you want to get involved, it just comes down to hard work, putting in your work right now, whether it's advocacy, whether it's building a business, whether it's, getting involved in your political, meetings in your local townships. It's just a matter of putting in work, and it's a lot of work. You don't, right? You can agree that you don't just become the expert, positioning yourself as such. It takes a lot of work to do that. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's you're going to have to dedicate time and hours to educating yourself, just like, January is rolling around and everyone's going to go to the gym in January, right?
Right.
And it's like, all right, so everyone goes to the gym in January, and then by the summertime, you can tell who stayed in the gym, right? You can tell who did that 6 or 7 month stretch, and it's the same thing in the cannabis industry. As you know, things they measure the cannabis industry in dog years, right? But if you've been in New Jersey, you can measure the days in dog years, because there have been some days, and you can attest to this, where we've literally catapulted to a whole nother level in terms of getting to where we need to get to.
Right.
And
it's definitely happening very fast.
It's happening very fast, so you have to stay in the game.
Yep.
You have to stay attuned to what's happening, and you have to make sure that you have, the right partnerships in place so everyone can benefit from this. It's going to, definitely this is, especially in my position and in your position, we could definitely take advantage of our positions and be selfish and position ourselves individually to really gain from this. But that doesn't help anyone in our community, because the cannabis community, the consumer is not just a consumer, it's a culture, it's a community.
Mm-hmm.
And
lifestyle.
A lot of these, it's a lifestyle. So a lot of these big companies that are coming in, they just think, well, we're going to create the best medicine and then everyone's going to come to us. And you know what? You are going to have some of that. That's inevitable. However, this is a culture, and this culture has customs and courtesies, and we have to always stay attuned to that. And the people who can really stay attuned to it are the folks like me and you and all the other advocates in New Jersey who are really promoting that this be created in a way that's responsible and beneficial to us.
Where do you see the industry headed, and where do you hope it is in 5 years?
I think in 5 years, based on what's happening globally, especially being that Canada legalized as an entire country federally on October 17th, I think that's going to put pressure on the United States to legalize at some point. I also think that as that's happening over the next 5 years, this is your opportunity to really get prepared and position yourself. So to the point you made a little bit earlier, once this becomes federally legal and then there's global markets that are going to come into play, ownership is going to be very difficult to be involved with, just like when the tech boom started, right? Those first 5 or 10 years in the tech movement, if you didn't take advantage of that, then you just became someone who bought a lot of stock from Facebook as opposed to owning Facebook, right? So I think it is going to be federally legal within the next 3 to 5 years. And at that point, we will see this industry treated the way every other industry is treated, or every agricultural industry is treated, where it's going to be commoditized, it's going to be marketed, and it's going to help a lot of patients. However, we need to ensure that as it's being built and developed again, that the advocates that have created this space for the cannabis industry, well, for the capital to come in and really benefit from it, we need to make sure we're tightly entwined in this industry. So we have a lot of work to do. It's moving extremely fast. But those who are, just like in any other space, those who are educated and involved and immersed the most are going to see they're going to reap the benefits.
The last point I just want to make is that, we both mentioned, the industry moving very fast. And even when I was at a recent, media panel, the Reverend was talking about, why are we rushing and why are we going so fast? But, on the one hand, the industry is moving fast, but people like us, I've been around it for over 25 years, so it's just like a long time coming for some of us, and we don't feel it's being rushed, Plus, states like California, they've been doing this for, a long 20 years, so
Mm-hmm.
there's been models implemented in other states. Colorado's now been legal and for 5 years, 6 years, so we're not rushing, into. We might be. We don't want to rush the law. We don't want to rush. The business models are going to be set up. But as far as like social justice and the health aspects, I don't feel like that's being rushed at all. What do you think?
I think we're actually late.
Right. Exactly.
I keep saying this. You are late.
Right. Yeah.
Like this.
Hashtag.
Everyone is late. I mean, if you, and it's very simple. If you want to see how late you are, take a flight to Toronto and attend an industry event. They're discussing things that we should be discussing. Instead, again, we still have officials here talking about gateway drug.
Right.
While if you go to Canada, they're figuring out every single way they're creating multiple ways to consume cannabis that have nothing to do with smoking. I mean, they're revolutionizing the way we consume this product and help ourselves, help improve our health. But in our country, we're talking about gateway drugs, and we're concerned. And now all of a sudden, we're concerned about kids, right?
Right.
Now we're worried about what's happening with kids when we have other policies in place in this country that completely ignore children.
Lock them up in cages, actually, but let's not
like
go there.
You know what I mean? So I mean, we could. That's another podcast.
Right.
But I mean, we're definitely late to the game. I recognize it. The people in my group recognize it, and that is my rhetoric. That is my pitch everywhere I go. That we're late, and we need to talk about how we're going to create pathways to become owners in this industry, in addition to worker bees, because everyone is not set to be an owner. That's a fact. However, we still need to create those pathways for people to have a choice, and those pathways are not being created. All we see is jobs. So we're late. We have a lot of work to do. I think when it comes to advocacy, I mean, we've seen advocacy. We've had the privilege of seeing advocates all over the country, and advocates all over the country are really doing a great job individually in their states, putting programs together to get in front of this. But just like we need, and just like those advocates need, we need support. And we need the support of our local politicians. We need the support of local community organizers, because it can't continue to just be a few of us showing up to go against a massive industry that's about to be created. We need more people. We need more folks involved.
Well, on that note, I encourage everyone to get involved. Attend Cannagather. When's the next Cannagather?
Yes. So October 30th, 7 p.m. in Trenton, New Jersey, at the First Trenton National Bank. Fantastic venue, right in the heart of the city.
Is there a website?
Yeah, so if you go to cannagather.com/NJ, or if you just Google Cannagather NJ, you'll see all our social media, our website. You can grab a ticket there. It's going to be an amazing event. We have Al Harrington, who's going to be our keynote speaker, who we discussed a little bit earlier,
Right.
former NBA star with Viola Extracts. And then we have Ruben Bayerga, Nelson Guerrero, and Matt Kutch. Matt Kutch is a Trentonite. He's born and raised in Trenton. He's one of the companies that's applying to be a retail dispensary in Trenton, New Jersey. And then we have David Wenger, who's going to give us a market analysis and tell us about, give us an update about investing in the cannabis space across the United States. So we have a dynamic lineup. Trenton, as you know and I know, was a major or is a major headquarters or will be for the cannabis
Definitely.
industry. In Central Jersey, I believe they're in Central Jersey, so I believe 30 companies apply to have licenses in Trenton. So it's going to be critical if you're interested in getting involved in the industry and you want to see what's actually going to take place in a city, the first city to pass an ordinance, then, be there and soak up the education and build your network.
We're definitely looking forward to it. I will see you then. All right.
Fantastic, Brian. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks so much.